Making homemade bread does not need to be as complicated as a full-blown loaf of sourdough. In fact, all you need is about 4 hours and a little bit of elbow grease, and you too can have a really solid loaf of bread. So today I'm going to be showing you my go-to recipe for when I'm in the mood for a simple rustic loaf. Let's get into it.
So I might have stretched the truth a little when I said this bread only takes 4 hours to make. The actual bread making process does only take a few hours, but this recipe also calls for a little prep work the night before in order to make the Poolish or pre-ferment. The Poolish is just 150 grams of flour, water, and a sprinkle of yeast that is mixed together and then sits on your countertop for preferably 16 hours. Using a Poolish really helps to improve the flavor and final texture of your bread, especially when using commercial yeast, so just plan ahead and make it the night before. The next day, when you're ready to get started on your bread dough, start by adding 280 grams of 100-degree water to a large bowl, and then all of the Poolish. The Poolish should smell super yeasty and have lots of bubbles. Stir it into the water with your finger, or I guess a spoon would work just as well, and then add 2 grams of yeast, 350 grams of bread flour, 50 grams of whole wheat flour, and then 10 grams of salt. Mix with a spoon until a shaggy dough forms, and then using a very wet hand so you can try to avoid getting dough stuck all over you. Knead the dough until it's well combined. I want to note that the dough will still be pretty slack at this point. We're really just looking for something cohesive, and we'll add strength later through our strength building folds. Once you're happy with it, cover it with a towel and let rest for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it's time to do the first strength building fold. With a very wet hand, grab an edge of the dough, pull it until there's tension, and then fold it back into the center of the dough ball. Do this 4 to 5 times or until you've gotten all the sides of the dough, and then round off your dough ball with several tuck and folds. Do this for about a minute, stopping if the dough begins to tear. Then cover again with a towel and let rest for another 30 minutes. When the 30 minutes are up, do a second set of strength building folds, repeating the same process as before. As I mentioned previously, this is the part of the bread making process where we add strength to our dough. By folding and stretching the dough in this manner, we're helping to develop and align the gluten, which gives the dough the strength it needs to hold itself up and expand evenly while baking, resulting in a light and fluffy loaf. Again, after about a minute of tucking and folding, cover with a towel and let proof for 1 hour. After 2 hours total of fermentation, you should have some very happy yeast, resulting in a light and airy dough that has just about doubled in size. Now to shape our boule, we're going to transfer the dough to a lightly floured surface and then take a corner, stretch it out until you feel tension, and then pull it back into the middle of the dough. Repeat until you've gone around the entire dough ball, popping any bubbles that develop along the way, as you don't want any big air pockets to develop as the loaf bakes. Flip the ball over so that it's now seam side down, and then rotate it in a circular motion, tucking the dough underneath itself as you go. This is again to create more tension in the loaf so it holds itself up as it rises and bakes. Transfer to a floured Banneton basket, and then cover with a towel and let rise for about 45 minutes. About 25 minutes in, start preheating the Dutch oven to 500 degrees, and then look at the rise on this dough. Nice and jiggly. Now to bake this boule, we'll need our ripping hot Dutch oven, some semolina flour, some scissors or a sharp knife, and a spray bottle. Sprinkle a generous amount of semolina flour into the Dutch oven, very carefully flip out the dough seam side down, cut a seam into the loaf with your scissors, and then spray down the loaf with some water. Cover with the lid, turn the oven temp down to 485 degrees, and then bake for 18 minutes. After those 18 minutes are up, remove the lid and bake uncovered for an additional 25 to 30 minutes or until it's nice and dark. The darker the crust, the deeper the flavor, so don't burn it, but lightly golden is not the end goal here. Now please stand by for some excellent freshly baked bread crackles. Slicing into the loaf, you can see our strength-building efforts were successful as we've achieved a fluffy, fully baked crumb with an even distribution of air bubbles. The crust is thin and crisp, delivering the perfect crunch with every bite. Sourdough will always have my heart, but this rustic loaf comes together in a fraction of the time and will absolutely satisfy any fresh bread cravings.
Light and fluffy on the inside with a crispy, flavorful crust. I really do think that anyone can make this super simple rustic loaf in their own home. So I'm gonna go enjoy this with my dinner tonight. Let me know if you make this.